And what makes this discovery so extraordinary is not simply what scientists observe, but what it reveals about who we are and how deeply our inner world shapes the physical reality we experience. I want you to consider this carefully. For decades, science treated consciousness as a byproduct of biology, a chemical process emerging from neurons firing in the brain. Thoughts were assumed to be electrical noise. Emotions were chemical reactions. The body was a machine responding automatically to external conditions. But what researchers are now observing challenges that model in ways that feel almost unsettling. We are seeing evidence that the human body responds not only to physical stimuli, but to meaning, perception, and belief itself. And when I say belief, I do not mean wishful thinking or imagination. I am speaking about deeply embodied emotional conviction, the kind of inner certainty that shapes our nervous system, regulates our hormones, and reorganizes our biology. This is where the conversation becomes fascinating. And modern measurements of the heart reveal that it generates an electromagnetic field far stronger than that of the brain. This field changes depending on emotional states. When we experience fear, frustration, or anger, the heart's rhythms become chaotic. The signal sent to the brain becomes disordered, and the body shifts into survival mode. But when we feel appreciation, compassion, or deep gratitude, the heart enters coherence, a harmonious rhythm that synchronizes brain function, stabilizes physiology, and enhances immune response. This suggests something profound. Our emotional state is not merely a reaction to reality. It is a force shaping how reality is processed inside the body. And here is where scientists pause and say, we have never seen anything like this, because the implications reach far beyond stress reduction or emotional health. They suggest that consciousness itself may be organizing biological processes in real time. I want you to imagine the significance of this. If our internal states influence gene expression, neural wiring, and cellular communication, then the boundary between mind and body dissolves. The two are not separate systems interacting occasionally. They are one continuous field of intelligence expressing itself through different forms. What we think, what we feel, and what we believe become biological instructions. Now let us go even deeper. Research in epigenetics demonstrates that genes are not fixed commands controlling our destiny. Instead, genes respond to environmental signals, and one of the most powerful environments we experience is our internal emotional landscape. Fear activates one set of genetic responses. Safety activates another. Love and connection activate entirely different pathways. In other words, our perception of reality determines how our body behaves at the molecular level. This discovery changes everything about how we understand healing, resilience, and human potential. But what makes this especially intriguing is that ancient traditions described this relationship thousands of years ago. They spoke of the heart as a center of intelligence. They described emotion as a creative force. They taught that inner harmony produces outer balance. For centuries, such ideas were dismissed as symbolic or mystical language. Yet now modern instruments measure the same principles in electrical signals, biochemical changes, and neural patterns. I find this convergence remarkable. It suggests that ancient wisdom was not primitive speculation, but careful observation of human experience expressed through different language. And this raises an important question. Why would the human system be designed so that belief influences biology? To understand this, we must reconsider what consciousness actually is. If consciousness were merely an accidental byproduct of neural activity, its influence on physical processes would be limited. But if consciousness is fundamental, if it is the organizing principle underlying biological life, then the body would naturally respond to inner experience as primary information. The body would listen to belief because belief reflects perceived reality. And the body always responds to what it perceives as real. Consider the placebo effect, one of the most documented yet mysterious phenomena in medical science. When a person believes they are receiving treatment, measurable physiological changes occur even when the treatment itself contains no active ingredient. Pain decreases, symptoms improve, the brain releases healing chemicals. The belief alone initiates biological transformation. This is not imagination, this is measurable change. And equally powerful is the opposite phenomenon, the nocebo effect, where negative expectations produce illness, stress responses, and deterioration of health. Again, belief becomes biology. What scientists find astonishing is the scale and consistency of these effects. The mind does not simply influence the body occasionally, it continuously shapes physiological outcomes. This forces us to confront a radical possibility. Human consciousness may function as a regulatory system for the body, guiding adaptation, survival, and transformation. But there is another layer that makes this discovery even more extraordinary. The heart and brain are not isolated organs communicating through simple signals. They operate as a unified network, constantly exchanging information. The heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. This reverses the traditional model of control. It implies that emotional experience processed through the heart may guide cognitive perception rather than merely responding to it. We do not simply think and then feel. We feel, and those feelings shape what we think. And when emotional coherence emerges, perception changes, creativity increases, intuition strengthens, problem solving improves. The body enters a state of integration. I want you to pause and sense the importance of this. If emotional coherence produces biological order, and biological order enhances mental clarity, then cultivating inner harmony becomes a practical technology for human transformation. This is not philosophy, it is physiology. Yet the implications extend even further. Some experiments suggest that human intention may influence physical systems beyond the body itself. Subtle changes in biological samples, shifts in random processes, and synchronized responses between individuals hint at a deeper interconnected field of awareness. While this research remains controversial, it points toward a possibility that challenges conventional assumptions. Consciousness may not be confined within the skull. It may be a shared field in which we participate. If this is true, then our emotions do not remain private experiences. They contribute to the environment around us. Our inner states become signals influencing collective reality. This idea echoes ancient teachings that describe humanity as interconnected expressions of a single living system. And now science begins to explore similar concepts through the language of fields, resonance, and coherence. When I reflect on these discoveries, I see a shift in how we understand human power and responsibility. If belief shapes biology, if emotion organizes physiology, and if consciousness participates in a larger field of intelligence, then every moment of awareness carries creative influence. The way we perceive ourselves matters. The stories we tell about our limitations matter. The emotional patterns we repeat matter, because the body is always listening. Cells are constantly receiving signals from our thoughts and feelings. They respond by adjusting chemistry, activating genes, and altering function. We are not victims of our biology. We are participants in its expression. But this realization also raises a challenging question. If our inner state shapes our physical experience, why do we so often remain trapped in patterns of fear, stress, and disconnection? To answer this, we must examine how conditioning, culture, and early experience program emotional responses. Many of our reactions operate automatically, formed long before conscious awareness develops. The nervous system learns survival strategies and repeats them even when they no longer serve us. Yet the same research that reveals these patterns also shows the brain's capacity for change. Neural pathways reorganize through repeated emotional experience. The heart's rhythms can be trained toward coherence. The body can learn new states of balance. Transformation is not only possible, it is built into our design. And when individuals begin to cultivate awareness of their inner world, observing thoughts, regulating emotion, and generating coherent states of gratitude or compassion, measurable changes occur in health, perception, and behavior. The human system reorganizes itself around new information. This brings us to an extraordinary realization. What we practice internally becomes who we become biologically. Identity itself is shaped by repeated emotional experience. And if identity can change, then the limits we assume about ourselves may not be fixed boundaries, but temporary patterns awaiting transformation. This is where science and ancient wisdom converge most clearly, at the understanding that self-awareness is the key to human evolution. Not evolution of the body alone, but evolution of perception, relationship, and consciousness itself. And as researchers continue exploring these mysteries, they encounter phenomena that challenge existing models of reality, observations that suggest the human being is far more than a physical organism reacting to external forces. We are participants in a dynamic relationship between consciousness and matter. And what we are only beginning to understand is how deeply this relationship extends into the structure of reality itself, and what it may mean for the future of human potential as we continue to explore the hidden intelligence within the heart, the brain, and the field of awareness that connects them, revealing possibilities that suggest our understanding of existence is only at the very beginning of a much larger unfolding that is still waiting to be fully discovered within the depths of human experience and the unexplored capacities of consciousness that continue to emerge as we learn to listen more deeply to the signals within us and recognize that what we call reality may be far more responsive to our inner world than we have ever imagined. And this realization opens the door to questions we have only just begun to ask about the true nature of human presence within the universe and the extraordinary potential that lies quietly within every moment of awareness as we begin to understand that the next discovery may not come from looking outward, but from turning inward and exploring. What we discover there may redefine everything we thought we knew about the limits of human experience. Because when we turn inward with genuine curiosity, we begin to notice something subtle yet powerful, the presence of awareness itself. Beneath the constant movement of thoughts, beneath emotional reactions, beneath sensory experience, there exists a silent observer. This awareness does not change even as every experience flows through it. And scientists studying consciousness are beginning to ask a profound question. Could this observing awareness be more fundamental than the brain activity associated with it? Traditionally, the brain was viewed as producing consciousness, much like a generator produces electricity. But emerging perspectives suggest something different, that the brain may function more like a receiver, translating a deeper field of awareness into human experience. If this is true, then consciousness is not created by the body expresses it. This shift changes how we understand identity. We are not merely physical organisms generating thoughts. We are expressions of a deeper intelligence interacting with physical reality through perception, emotion, and intention. The mind becomes an interface, the body becomes an instrument, and awareness becomes the underlying source. I want you to feel the implications of this idea. If consciousness is fundamental, then every emotional state becomes a form of communication between the individual and the field of reality itself. Our internal coherence may influence not only our biology, but the patterns of experience we encounter. And here, modern research on attention offers fascinating insight. Neuroscientists observe that attention changes the structure of the brain. When we repeatedly focus on fear, neural circuits associated with threat become stronger. When we focus on compassion or gratitude, entirely different networks develop. The brain reorganizes itself around what we consistently attend to. Attention becomes a sculpting force, but attention alone is not enough. Emotion amplifies its effect. When thought and emotion align, the signal becomes stronger, more coherent, more influential within the body. This alignment between thought and feeling creates what some researchers describe as a highly ordered internal state, a condition in which physiological systems synchronize. Energy is conserved and perception becomes clearer. In this state, reaction gives way to response. Habit gives way to choice. And the individual begins to experience a sense of agency over inner experience that once seemed impossible. I often reflect on how transformative this understanding can be in daily life. When we recognize that emotional patterns shape biology, we no longer see stress as merely psychological discomfort. We understand it as a biological program influencing every cell. Chronic fear is not just a feeling, it is a chemical environment that reshapes the body over time. Likewise, sustained states of appreciation or compassion become biological nourishment. The body thrives under coherence. This realization invites a different approach to human well-being. Instead of attempting to control external conditions alone, we begin cultivating internal order. We learn to regulate breath, direct attention, and generate emotional states intentionally. These practices, once considered spiritual or philosophical, are now studied for measurable physiological effects, changes in heart rhythms, brain waves, immune response, and gene expression. The boundary between inner experience and physical health grows increasingly thin. Yet there is another dimension that continues to intrigue researchers. Human beings possess an extraordinary capacity for meaning-making. We interpret events, assign significance, and construct narratives about our lives. These narratives influence emotional response and therefore biological activity. Two individuals may face identical circumstances yet experience entirely different physiological outcomes depending on the meaning they assign to the situation. Meaning becomes biology. This reveals an unexpected power within perception. By changing interpretation, we alter emotional chemistry. By altering emotional chemistry, we influence physical reality within the body. This is not denial of external challenges, it is recognition that interpretation shapes experience. Ancient traditions describe this process as mastery of the inner world. Modern science begins to describe it as cognitive and emotional regulation. Different languages, yet pointing toward the same human capacity. But something even more profound emerges when individuals begin stabilizing coherent emotional states for extended periods. Reports describe heightened intuition, deeper empathy, and a sense of connection that transcends ordinary perception. The boundaries between self and environment feel less rigid. Awareness appears more expansive. Researchers exploring these states observe unusual patterns of brain synchronization, suggesting that the brain operates in more integrated ways when the individual experiences inner coherence. The system becomes unified, and unity appears to be the key. Fragmentation within the mind produces disorder within the body. Integration within awareness produces harmony within physiology. The human organism seems designed to function optimally when thought, emotion, and intention align. This raises an extraordinary possibility. Evolution may not be driven solely by genetic mutation or environmental pressure. It may also be guided by shifts in consciousness. As awareness expands, behavior changes, biology adapts. Over time, new capacities emerge. Human development becomes both biological and experiential. I find it remarkable that throughout history, cultures across the world emphasized self-awareness, compassion, and emotional balance as pathways to transformation. These teachings may have reflected an intuitive understanding of principles that science is only now beginning to measure. What we once called wisdom may describe biological optimization, and yet, despite these insights, much remains mysterious. How does subjective experience translate into physical change? How does intention influence neural firing patterns? What mechanism allows belief to reorganize cellular processes? These questions remain open. Scientists can observe correlations, measure effects, and describe patterns, but the underlying mechanism, the bridge between consciousness and matter, remains largely unknown. And perhaps this mystery is itself significant. It suggests that reality may be far more participatory than mechanistic. The observer may not be separate from the observed. Experience may not be merely a reflection of the world, but a co-creation between awareness and environment. If this is true, then human responsibility expands dramatically. Every emotional reaction becomes a contribution to the field of experience. Every thought becomes a potential influence. Every moment of awareness becomes an opportunity to shape both inner and outer reality. This perspective does not imply control over all events, but it reveals participation in the process of experience itself. We are not passive witnesses. We are active participants. And when we begin to live from this understanding, daily life transforms. Ordinary moments become opportunities for coherence. Relationships become mirrors of internal state. Challenges become invitations to cultivate stability within uncertainty. The practice of awareness becomes a way of being. But the deeper we explore this territory, the more we encounter questions that stretch beyond conventional science. Questions about the origin of consciousness, the nature of identity, and the possibility that awareness itself may be the fundamental fabric from which reality emerges. If consciousness is primary, then matter may arise from patterns of information within awareness rather than the other way around. Physical reality may be an expression of deeper organizing principles that we are only beginning to perceive. And this possibility leads us toward an even greater mystery that the universe itself may be responsive, participatory, and intimately connected with the experience of those who observe it. As researchers continue to investigate these ideas, they uncover patterns suggesting that the human being is not isolated within a vast, indifferent cosmos, but embedded within a dynamic network of relationship that extends beyond what we currently understand. And when we begin to sense this relationship directly through moments of coherence, insight, or deep presence, we glimpse something extraordinary, the possibility that human consciousness is not merely evolving within the universe, but that the universe may be evolving through human consciousness, expressing itself through perception, emotion, and awareness in ways that invite us to reconsider the very meaning of existence and to explore what becomes possible when we fully recognize the immense creative capacity residing within the simple yet profound experience of being aware. A capacity that continues to reveal new dimensions of understanding as we deepen our inquiry into the mysterious connection between mind, body, and reality. And as we follow this exploration further, we begin to encounter evidence that suggests the next frontier of discovery may involve not new technologies or external exploration, but the systematic study of inner experience itself and the untapped potential that lies within the human heart and mind, waiting to be realized through a deeper understanding of how awareness itself transforms the structure of our experience when we begin to observe it with precision. What becomes clear in this deeper exploration is that awareness is not passive. It does not merely watch reality unfold, it participates, it interacts, it appears to influence the very processes it observes. When scientists examine the role of observation at the smallest measurable scales of nature, they encounter behavior that defies classical expectations. Systems behave differently when observed than when left unobserved. Outcomes shift depending on interaction. The boundary between observer and event becomes less certain. This challenges the assumption that reality exists entirely independent of perception. Instead, it suggests that consciousness may be woven into the fabric of physical processes. I want you to pause and reflect on what this means for our everyday experience. If awareness participates in shaping reality, then the quality of our attention matters profoundly. The state of mind through which we perceive the world becomes part of the world we perceive. A fragmented mind perceives fragmentation. A coherent mind perceives connection. This does not mean we create reality in a simplistic sense, but rather that perception and experience exist in continuous dialogue. The inner and outer worlds reflect one another, and this reflection becomes visible in the body. When perception changes from threat to safety, physiology shifts immediately. Muscles relax, hormonal cascades transform, immune activity adjusts, the entire system reorganizes around a new interpretation of reality. The body does not wait for external confirmation, it responds to perceived experience. This reveals something remarkable about human design. We are equipped with the capacity to generate internal conditions that reshape biological function. Through attention, emotion, and belief, we influence processes that were once thought to be automatic and beyond conscious reach. But this capacity requires awareness. Without awareness, we live within inherited patterns. Emotional reactions repeat automatically. Stress responses become habitual. Perception narrows. The body remains locked in cycles of survival. With awareness, however, a space emerges between stimulus and response. In that space lies choice. Choice allows transformation. The nervous system begins to learn new patterns. Instead of reacting unconsciously, we observe experience as it unfolds. Observation itself begins to regulate emotional intensity. Clarity replaces confusion. And gradually, the system reorganizes. This process reveals that consciousness possesses a stabilizing function. When awareness is present, chaos decreases. When attention is fragmented, disorder increases. It is as if awareness introduces coherence into the system simply by observing without resistance. This principle appears across many domains of human experience. Focused attention improves learning. Mindful awareness reduces stress. Emotional regulation enhances health. Consistent observation reshapes behavior. Awareness transforms whatever it touches. And yet, this raises another profound question. If awareness has the power to reorganize biology and perception, what determines the quality of awareness itself? Why does attention sometimes remain scattered, reactive, and unconscious, while at other times it becomes clear, stable, and deeply present? Researchers studying brain dynamics observe that the mind naturally fluctuates between different states of organization. Some states are chaotic, dominated by rapid emotional reactivity. Others are highly ordered, characterized by calm focus and integrated processing. The transition between these states often depends on emotional balance. When fear dominates, attention narrows. When calm is present, attention expands. This relationship reveals that emotional mastery is not suppression of feeling, but regulation of energy within the system. Emotions become information rather than overwhelming forces. They guide awareness instead of controlling it. Through practice, individuals learn to maintain coherence even in challenging conditions. Breath slows, heart rhythms stabilize, thought becomes clear. The body learns resilience, and resilience changes perception. Instead of seeing obstacles as threats, the mind interprets them as challenges to be understood. Instead of reacting defensively, awareness responds creatively. This shift in perception produces measurable changes in brain function. Networks associated with insight and problem solving become more active. Stress-related activity decreases. The organism becomes more adaptive. I often reflect on how different human history might be if this understanding were widely cultivated. If individuals learned early in life how to regulate emotion, focus attention, and observe thought, the collective experience of society might shift dramatically. Conflict might decrease. Empathy might increase. Decision-making might become more balanced. Because when individuals experience inner coherence, they naturally express greater clarity and compassion outwardly. This suggests that personal transformation and collective transformation are inseparable. The state of the individual influences the state of the whole. And this brings us to another extraordinary dimension of human consciousness, the capacity for shared emotional and cognitive states. Research shows that individuals in close proximity often synchronize physiological patterns. Heart rhythms align, brain activity becomes coordinated, emotional states spread through groups rapidly. We influence one another continuously, often without conscious awareness. This phenomenon reveals that human beings exist within networks of connection, extending beyond physical boundaries. Our internal states affect others. Their states affect us. Consciousness operates not only individually, but relationally. When coherence emerges within one individual, it can stabilize others. When fear spreads within a group, disorder increases collectively. This dynamic suggests that emotional responsibility extends beyond personal well-being. It contributes to the environment we share, and this understanding transforms the meaning of compassion. Compassion is not merely an ethical ideal. It becomes a stabilizing force within human systems. When we cultivate empathy and understanding, we introduce coherence into relationships, communities, and perhaps even broader networks of interaction. The implications of this are profound. Human consciousness may function as a field of shared influence where individual awareness contributes to collective experience. But how far does this influence extend? Some researchers explore whether intention and focused attention can produce measurable effects at a distance, influencing biological or physical systems without direct contact. While results remain debated, the persistence of such investigations reflects a growing willingness to question traditional assumptions about separation. If consciousness operates as a field, distance may not function as a barrier in the way we once believed. This possibility challenges deeply held views about individuality and isolation. It invites us to reconsider what it means to be a self. Perhaps the self is not a fixed entity contained within the body, but a dynamic process emerging through relationship with the environment, with others, and with the field of awareness itself. Identity becomes fluid rather than rigid. And when identity expands, behavior changes. A person who experiences deep connection with others naturally acts with greater care. A person who perceives unity within life behaves differently than one who perceives separation. Perception shapes ethics. Ethics shape action. Action shapes the world. This chain of influence reveals how inner transformation can lead to outer change, not through force, but through alignment with deeper patterns of coherence. Yet even as these ideas gain attention, much of their potential remains unrealized. Many individuals continue to experience disconnection from their own inner processes. Awareness remains scattered. Emotional patterns remain unconscious. The challenge then is not only to understand these principles intellectually, but to embody them through experience. Embodiment requires practice. It requires observing thoughts without attachment, feeling emotions without resistance, and cultivating states of presence intentionally. Over time, these practices strengthen neural pathways associated with stability and clarity. The mind becomes less reactive. The heart becomes more coherent. The body becomes more balanced. And something subtle begins to emerge, a sense of inner silence beneath the activity of thought, a stable ground from which experience unfolds. Within this silence, insight arises spontaneously. Creativity flows without effort. Perception becomes vivid and immediate. Many describe this state as heightened awareness or expanded consciousness. From a scientific perspective, it represents a highly integrated mode of brain and physiological function. From a personal perspective, it feels like alignment with a deeper dimension of self. And as individuals stabilize this state, they often report a profound shift in their relationship with reality, a sense that life is not random chaos, but an unfolding process in which awareness plays a central role. This perception transforms the meaning of existence. Life becomes exploration. Experience becomes information. Awareness becomes the instrument through which reality knows itself. And if this perspective continues to develop through future research and lived experience, it may lead humanity toward an entirely new understanding of its place within the cosmos, not as separate observers of an external universe, but as participants within a vast field of consciousness expressing itself through countless forms, a realization that invites us to question how far this participatory relationship extends and what new capacities may emerge as we continue to refine our awareness, deepen our emotional coherence, and explore the mysterious processes through which mind and matter interact in ways that hint at principles we have only begun to perceive, principles that may ultimately reveal that the evolution of human consciousness is not an isolated event, but part of a larger movement within reality itself. A movement that continues to unfold through every moment of perception, every shift of attention, and every awakening insight that draws us closer to understanding the hidden architecture of experience and the profound intelligence that seems to operate quietly beneath the surface of everything we perceive, guiding us toward discoveries that remain just beyond the horizon of current knowledge, waiting to be recognized as we continue to explore the limitless depths of awareness and the extraordinary possibilities that arise when we begin to ask what new dimensions of human potential might awaken when we fully understand the mechanisms through which consciousness and reality continuously shape one another. At this point in our exploration, we begin to see that the question is no longer whether the mind influences the body or whether perception shapes experience. The deeper question is how far this influence extends and what hidden capacities remain dormant within the human system. Because when we observe human behavior across different conditions, we notice something striking. Under ordinary circumstances, much of our perception operates through filters, habits of thought, emotional conditioning, cultural assumptions, and learned expectations. These filters create a predictable version of reality. They stabilize experience, but they also limit what we can perceive. Yet, when these filters soften, when attention becomes clear and emotions become balanced, perception itself appears to expand. Individuals report heightened sensitivity to subtle information. They notice patterns they once overlooked. They experience deeper intuition, more rapid learning, and a stronger sense of connection with their environment. From a biological perspective, this corresponds to increased neural integration, improved communication between brain regions, and more efficient energy use within the nervous system. The system becomes optimized But from an experiential perspective, it feels like awakening to a deeper layer of reality. This raises a compelling possibility that human consciousness exists on a spectrum of expression. At one end lies survival-based awareness, focused on threat and reaction. At the other lies expanded awareness, characterized by clarity, coherence, and connection. And the movement along this spectrum is influenced by emotional regulation, attention, and belief. In other words, consciousness evolves through experience. I find this insight profoundly empowering because it suggests that human development is not limited to physical growth or intellectual knowledge. It includes the refinement of awareness itself. We can learn to perceive more deeply. We can learn to respond more consciously. We can learn to embody greater coherence. And as this refinement occurs, our relationship with time also appears to change. When the mind is dominated by stress, time feels compressed, attention fragments, experience becomes rushed and reactive. But when awareness becomes stable and present, time seems to expand, perception slows, we notice details that previously escaped us. This shift is not merely psychological, it reflects measurable changes in brain activity, where networks associated with present moment awareness become more active. The experience of time, like the experience of reality, appears shaped by consciousness, and this observation leads us toward an even deeper mystery. If perception shapes experience and experience shapes biology, then the boundaries of human capability may be far more flexible than previously assumed. Consider how quickly the body adapts to repeated mental practice. Visualization alone can strengthen neural pathways associated with physical movement. Focused intention can alter stress responses. Emotional rehearsal can change behavioral outcomes. The brain and body respond to imagined experience in ways similar to actual events. This reveals that the line between inner reality and outer reality is not as rigid as we once believed. The body listens to experience, whether that experience originates externally or internally. This understanding offers practical implications for everyday life. It suggests that the states we cultivate internally through reflection, attention, and emotional balance become templates for how the body and mind operate in the world. We train our system through experience, and what we repeatedly experience becomes our baseline state. But there is also a collective dimension to this process that deserves careful attention. Human societies are shaped by shared beliefs, shared emotions, and shared perceptions of reality. Cultural narratives influence how individuals interpret events, how they respond to challenges, and what they consider possible. When collective belief emphasizes fear, division increases. When collective awareness emphasizes connection, cooperation emerges. The inner world of individuals contributes to the outer world of society. This suggests that the evolution of consciousness is not only personal but collective. As more individuals cultivate awareness and coherence, the shared environment of human experience may gradually transform, and this transformation may unfold in subtle ways through shifts in communication, changes in values, and new approaches to understanding life itself. Yet, despite the promise of this possibility, one challenge remains constant. The human mind tends to return to familiar patterns. Even when we glimpse deeper awareness, habitual thinking can pull us back into automatic reactions. Emotional conditioning can override conscious intention. This is why sustained transformation requires consistent practice. Awareness must be cultivated repeatedly. Emotional balance must be trained. Attention must be guided with intention. Over time, new patterns stabilize. What once required effort becomes natural. The nervous system learns coherence as its default state, and when this stabilization occurs, a remarkable shift takes place. Life no longer feels like a series of problems to solve, but a continuous process of discovery. Uncertainty becomes less threatening. Change becomes an opportunity rather than a disruption. Awareness becomes resilient. In this state, individuals often describe a sense of alignment, a feeling that thought, emotion, and action operate in harmony. Decisions become clearer, relationships become more authentic, experience feels meaningful. From a scientific perspective, this reflects integrated brain function and balanced physiology. From a human perspective, it feels like wholeness And perhaps this sense of wholeness reveals something essential about the nature of consciousness itself. It suggests that coherence is not something we impose upon ourselves, but something we uncover when interference decreases. Beneath the noise of conditioned thought and emotional turbulence, there may exist a natural state of order within the human system, a state of inherent balance. If this is true, then the journey of consciousness is not about becoming something new, but about rediscovering what has always been present beneath layers of conditioning. We remove distortion. We reveal clarity. We uncover the deeper intelligence guiding life. And as we continue to explore this intelligence, both scientifically and through direct experience, we begin to encounter evidence that challenges our assumptions about the nature of reality itself. Evidence suggesting that awareness, intention, and perception may participate in processes far more fundamental than previously imagined, processes that hint at an underlying unity connecting mind, body, and universe in ways that remain largely unexplored, inviting us to question not only what consciousness is, but what role it plays in the ongoing unfolding of existence. And as we follow this question further, we begin to approach the threshold of a new understanding, one that suggests the next breakthrough in science may arise not from external observation alone, but from a disciplined exploration of inner experience, an exploration that may ultimately reveal principles capable of transforming how we understand health, identity, and the nature of human potential, opening pathways that lead us toward discoveries still waiting quietly within the depths of awareness, discoveries that continue to emerge as we learn to listen more carefully to the subtle signals of perception and recognize that the story of consciousness is still unfolding, guiding us toward insights that may reshape our understanding of what it truly means to be human and what possibilities remain hidden within the extraordinary capacity of awareness as we continue to explore